What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the NSP show. We are continuing our segment of grading teams 2023 season, and today we're going to kick things off with the Los Angeles Chargers. A very disappointing season, to say the least, but there's a lot to talk about these guys, and there's a lot of question marks, in the beginning of last season, and now there's a lot more question marks entering this season. So let's revert back all the way to the start of the season. They had the sixth best odds of getting to the Super Bowl entering 2023 season. And as we all know, things didn't work out quite that well for them. And another big question mark that they had was if they were willing to commit to Austin Eckler to a long-term contract after the great season he had in 2022. And really, he had a great season in 2021 as well. So everyone was scratching their heads on why the Chargers would not want to commit to Austin Eckler in a long-term deal. And it seems like they were right about something, right? So he didn't perform that well this past season. They ended up finishing 5-12, last in their division. And remember, they have teams like the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos in that division, and they were dead last. 5-12 ain't that great, and you could kind of tell the rest of the story. I graded them a C minus, which I feel like it's pretty fair. I think that's actually a nice grading for them. Reed went ahead and graded them a D, while Vincent graded them a C. If you don't know who those guys are, there are other co-hosts here on this show if you guys catch our lives on Monday. But I graded them a C minus. I think they had a pretty fair season. Really bad to say the least. But there's a lot of upside when it comes to this team, especially now. But first, I want to address some of the wrongs that they did this past season. And number one was picking up Quentin Johnston in the first round of last year's draft. And this guy was an absolute bust. But he has the opportunity to prove himself this upcoming season by being the wide receiver one. Yes, I know some people will say, are you crazy? Josh Palmer is probably considered the wide receiver one over Quentin Johnston after what he did last year, which was really bad. But I feel like this guy has an opportunity to prove why he was taken in the first round. And hopefully he does, because the Chargers, they need him to. They don't have a wide receiver room right now. And another wrong that they did was having a defensive-minded coach, Brandon Staley, finishing 28th overall amongst the NFL defenses. I mean, that is just horrible. You get a defensive-minded coach as a head coach, and you finish 28th. It was just absolutely horrible. I know they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but I don't think there's any excuse there, and that's probably why they don't have him anymore. Now, for some of the rights that they did last season is practically that. They let go of Brandon Staley, and they also let go of general manager Tom Telesco. Just let's completely rebuild. We got a good franchise quarterback, and yes, he is a franchise quarterback. What can we do to build around him, and how can we make this team better? Let's just bring in Jim Harbaugh, the guy who just won the championship off of college with Go Blue, Michigan. Let's see what he can do, right? This guy has done it all. They also cleared up a lot of cap space after, contract negotiations with Khalil Mack, Nick Bosa, and they're actually amongst top 5 in teams in available cap space. So great for them entering this season. And a big part of that was them releasing Mike Williams. And yes, I do feel like that is a huge good, thumbs up for them on releasing Mike Williams, because one, he's a 30-year-old wide receiver, okay? And this is a young team that you're going to start building around. You don't need a 30-year-old guy who's going to take up $32 million. But by releasing him, they do clear 20 mil of their cap, which that's a lot. And that's a lot of moolah that you could go and do something else. So I do like that move. So releasing Mike Williams, restructuring Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack's contract was a huge upside this offseason. So it's not all bad. But another transaction that happened this offseason, there's actually quite a few, but here are some of the key ones, is Bradley Bozeman. I think this is huge for them, and I mean absolutely ginormous. Bradley Bozeman, he goes ahead and signs with the Los Angeles Chargers, helping them fill a dramatic hole that they had in that offensive line. So I think that's the first step in the right direction. Up next, you sign Gus Edwards, right, to help fill that empty void in that running back room, because you lose out on Austin Eckler, you lose out on Joshua Kelly, you have Spiller left in there, but there's not really much after that. Now, Gus Edwards, he's shown, some promise out there in Baltimore. And I think he'll do very well here, but I don't believe that he'll be the running back one for that team. Hopefully, they do get someone in the draft, and we're going to get to that in just a bit. And last but certainly not least, they traded All-Pro Keenan Allen to the Bears for a fourth rounder. I didn't like that. I get it. Keenan Allen, he is an older guy, but really he's a staple point on that team and can really help these young wide receivers learn. But the thing that I didn't like about it most was they only got a fourth rounder for it. But now looking at these quarterbacks getting traded with Mac Jones, with Justin Fields, I think a fourth rounder is pretty darn good now. But Keenan Allen did come out and say that he wanted to finish his career with Los Angeles. So before y'all start hating on Los Angeles, he didn't want to take a pay cut. So Los Angeles went up to him, tried to restructure his contract just like they did with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And this guy said, "No way, Jose. I'm Keenan Allen. I'm freaking good." And they're like, "Okay, sorry, then we're going to have to part ways." So in reality, I think it's his fault. He has earned that money. He has earned that bag. And I'm glad he's going out there and getting it with the Bears. But if you really want to retire or finish his career with the Chargers, he should have just taken the pay cut, in my opinion. But moving forward, I'm super excited about the Chargers. And yes, like I said before, there's a lot of question marks with Jim Harbaugh. What are you going to do? You have no wide receivers. You have no running back. You're starting to address the offensive line, but what the hell is going on? And this is why I'm excited. I'm super excited because of their draft picks, specifically their number 1 and number 2 picks of this draft for this upcoming draft, which will be there, by the way. NSP will be in Detroit watching this live. So I'm super excited to see what the Chargers do, especially since they have the 5th overall pick. And then after that, they have the 37th, so an early second rounder. Honestly, with the 5th overall pick, I do believe they will 100% get Marvin Harrison Jr. And I absolutely believe that he can fall to number 5. I think 5 will be the latest pick that he will fall to. But if he does not fall to number 5, I would love to see, or I'll expect the Chargers to go ahead and take a step back, not reach for another wide receiver, move back in the draft to a QB needing team, and get themselves a decent wide receiver or keep on building that offensive line. But then here comes number 37 pick. I think Jim Harbaugh reunites with his running back, Blake Corum. I think this would be awesome. I think it would be a great fit as well because Jim has all that experience with Blake and he does a lot already. He's not that guy to take over that offense, but he's that guy to heavily complement that offense. And that's something that would be perfect for Justin Herbert and that offense of those wide receivers. Not having Gus Edwards take the whole load, but letting them share, kind of like what they did out there in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery. I think there'll be that 1-2 punch. I think this would be a perfect fit if they could get Blake Corum out there and pick 37. Now, for my next year's prediction, there's a lot of uncertainty, but one thing's for certain is that Jim Harbaugh knows what he's doing. They do have a pretty decent schedule. It's nothing too crazy, but they are in a very tough division. And if you're a Chargers fan, or if you're just a fan of football that are following the Chargers, just trust the process. Jim Harbaugh has proved that he could do it in the college level and in the NFL. And arguably, Justin Herbert's probably the best quarterback he's ever had to coach. I'm just putting that out there. You could argue with me in the comment section if you want, but I think Justin Herbert is the best he's had so far, and I think he's going to find a lot of success as long as the team gives him time. You give Jim Harbaugh time, you're going to see some great things happen out there for the Chargers. So I like that a lot. I do predict this team to go 8 or 9, give or take a game next year, and probably miss the playoffs once again, depending how the AFC does as a whole. But I think 8-9 will be a pretty good upgrade compared to this past season going 5-12, which we're not going to talk about last season, right? If you're a Chargers fan, you're just going to forget about it and move on. You're excited for the future. You're kind of a rebuild mode. I wouldn't want to call it rebuild, but more of a restructure type of team, right? Because you have your foundation, which is Justin Herbert, a franchise quarterback. You have some good key pieces out there in the defense with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I get that they're older, but the more young players you bring in, the more they get to learn under these veteran, actually these huge staple guys in the NFL. So that's what I got for the Los Angeles Chargers. Like I said, I did grade them a C minus for last year, but this upcoming season, I have a lot of high hopes for them if they play their cards right. So if you guys like this video, or if you guys want to see us do another team, leave it down in the comment section, hit that thumbs up, and until next time, keep on grinding.